Surprised?
The Chicago Cubs are 2 games in back of the Milwaukee Brewers in the NL Central, but they still have the second best record in baseball. We'll tell you how it happened coming up. The Chicago Bears returned home to Soldier Field in front of a big crowd for their family fest. How did the offense do? What did the defense do? I'll give you the full report from a bird's eye view coming up. And in basketball, Luka Doncic gets some big paper from the purple and gold. In time permitting, we'll have Old School TV Monday paying tribute to a acting legend in a sitcom that refined the early 2000s. That and a whole lot more. So Monday starting against Second City Sports starts right now. Or fish from shore. The source reserve. Welcome to another fun-filled edition of Second City Sports, the Monday extravaganza, the first one for the month of August. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. You know it's me. You follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow McGee on the Twitter, execute again, IG.
Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, so Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We're located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We're on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions, do not 2 hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the upper screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to be able to boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live Entertainment Game that's checking us out right now on our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube pages at 12:22 p.m. Central Standard Time. But let's not forget much love to the replay game. Also checking us out on the replay, also at our Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. If you forget our motto, don't you ever forget it after today. Whether we talk sports, music, or entertainment, we will provide.
And we might use some of the best here on Second City Sports. Of course, we'll have some of the latest at our first Monday show of August. Of course, Luka gets fresh paper from the Lakers. Also, to our Old School TV Monday, we'll salute to 80s acting icon and a sitcom that helped redefine the early 2000s. It kind of got it going there in the sitcom front in the aughts. Also, too, of course, we'll have NFL training camps. It was at Family Fest yesterday. We'll have his early impressions and some concerns, I guess depending on who you talk to. Also, the Pro Football Hall of Fame speeches from over the weekend and how things just got interesting for next year's class. We'll have that. And so as for sports media news, of course, as NBC announced their sideline reporters for their basketball coverage, and a golfing announcer announces his retirement. He signed off for the final time yesterday, and so much more. But first, Sid, let's talk some baseball as the Cubs get 2 out of 3 against the Orioles. They should have swept, but that's a whole different story there. Justin Turner hit a game-winning walk-off 2-run home run to that series. Hard to believe this is his first career walk-off, which that was kind of shocking to hear that part. But look, it's not the old BCS in college football where it's all about computers and style points and stuff. Look, as long as you get the win, and I think that's what the Cubs needed to do. They're right back at it tonight against Cincinnati. They've been up and down lately. So, Sid, what do you think about that series for the Cubs with the Orioles?
As you mentioned, they take 2 out of 3 from the Birds. In Friday's game, Cade Horton for the Cubs pitched very well. Obviously, Rogers on the other side for Baltimore pitched excellent as well. But the Cubs did what they had to do to squeak out a 1-0 win. And as we talked about before, LaKeena, on Friday, last Friday's show, and throughout the season, when the Cubs do not hit home runs, they got to find ways to create runs, and they did that in that first game last Friday. Last Saturday's game, I was there. I was there, of course. It was the first home game since Ryan Sandberg's death about a week ago today, so you could tell it's a little bit of a different tone there. It was still a festive atmosphere, but it was a little bit of a different tone. And of course, I got a chance to look at the statue up close with the fans, placing their flowers and their cards, other memorabilia at the Ryan Sandberg statue. Of course, that part was roped off, but it was an honor to see that. And it was a lot of mixed emotions from some fans that I talked to and stood in line as I waited to take the picture. But to the actual game on Saturday, the Cubs jumped out to a quick early 1-0 lead. Matthew Boyd pitched his butt off. He had 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. And of course, the bullpen came in. Caleb Thielbar, the former Minnesota Twin, he's actually been one of the best relievers in baseball all year. But on the 1-2 pitch to Gunnar Henderson, the 8th inning, bye goes to baseball, and the Baltimore ends up winning 4-3. Everybody in the stadium was shocked, including yours truly. I was wearing my Cal Ripken Jr. jersey, by the way, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. But everybody was shocked in that building because that Baltimore team was highlighted. They were going through motions like, okay, the Cubs were playing better, and then one pitch changed everything. And then, of course, yesterday the Cubs jumped out to early 2-0 lead. Baltimore came back. Dansby Swanson gave the Cubs the lead again. Of course, Baltimore ties it again in the ninth. Of course, as you mentioned, Justin Turner said goodnight to the Olds with that walk-off home run. So the Cubs did what they had to do. As you said last Friday on the show, LaKeena, the Cubs could not do any worse but take 2 out of 3. But you hope that what happened on Saturday doesn't happen too many more times, because you can't say wait to the trade deadline because that's past. You can't wait to say, we'll see what happens before the season starts. No, these are the guys that you have available on your roster that are healthy, ready to go. Whoever steps in must be able to do the job.
Well, and the good news is for the Cubs is that they were able to kind of get that 2 out of 3. And Friday's game, of course, like I said, Horton did pitch a gem in that game. Of course, only an hour and 49 minutes. So Greg Maddux and Mark Burley would have been proud at that time of that Friday's game, but they were able to pull it out. Matthew Boyd hit that was probably his best pitching performance of the season. Unfortunately, they wasted that, but and I think Sandberg probably, if he, I'm sure he probably was up in heaven shaking his head in disappointment in this family like everyone else when it was hit that home run. But look, that's what you're supposed to do. Look, you Cubs, they came back, got the win, thanks to Turner, and look, you get 2 out of 3. You play Cincinnati. Like I said, Cincinnati's been up and down like this season, so there's no reason why you can't win that series and perhaps try to maybe see if you can gain the game. The Brewers, they look. I don't want to say it, but they kind of benefited from a softer part of their schedule. So we'll see what they do against Atlanta starting tonight. We'll talk about them after the break, but yeah, it's, like I said, I mean, look, you just got to win your series, until you play them again, and don't get caught looking ahead. That's really the best way to look at it.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports All Chicago. LaKeena here with you on this Monday extravaganza edition, the first one for the month of August. Talking Cubs baseball. We'll get to the Southsiders and the rest of Major League Baseball after this bottom of the hour timeout. But going back to the lineup, LaKeena, over the weekend, Ian Happ looked bad in the outfield yesterday. He dropped the ball out of his glove. But I want to ask you about Pete Crow Armstrong, a.k.a. PCA, as the kids would say. He did not have a hit in his last 2 games. As we said before, he has to be more selective with his at bats. I know that he's been swinging when the fastballs middle in. He's been able to carry the ball out of the ballpark for the most part this year. But looking at that last at bat for the Cubs to give them the chance to lead at worst tie the game and send it to extra innings, I didn't think his approach was all that great. And of course, yesterday he was 0 for 4. I still believe he's a top 5 candidate for MVP, but are you starting to get worried about him?
Not really. I mean, look, this is the ebbs and flows of a long season. So I think, for people that were kind of freaking out about it, like he didn't have a good series against Baltimore, you would have thought that maybe he would have had 3 or 4 home runs, like 8 RBIs during the series. He didn't. I'm kind of at that point where I'm just like, look, if by look, we're going into August. This is when you kind of folks are really starting paying attention when it comes to MVP and stuff like that. Now, if he doesn't have a good month of August, then you can kind of get concerned. But I think right now this is just the ebbs and flows of the season. So I'm not worried about PC as long as the Cubs win. I think look if PCA goes over, but the Cubs win, I think I'll take that whether better than PCA goes 3 for 4 and they lose. So you rather have the former though, honestly.
And I want to ask you about Willie Castro. Of course, as I mentioned, I was there last Saturday. He replaced Dansby Swanson in the lineup at shortstop, giving him talking about Swanson the day out. But he came up with a couple of hits in that game. But uh, but he was acquired from the Minnesota Twins at the deadline. He's a utility guy, and it looks like to me that he's going to be valuable to this team going forward. You could play him at shortstop. You could give Matt Shaw at third base the day off. This is the kind of guy that Jets been looking for all year. The other guys that been in that role couldn't do it. It looks like the cast is finally going to fit that role for this team, and this is one actual moves that I actually like for that Jet Hoyer did this last Thursday at the trade deadline.
Yeah, Castro is definitely how he's always been a utility guy, and this is the kind of guy that is consistent. So I think this is sort of like really like the better part of what the Cubs are looking for. So I think Castro can definitely get the hits. He can play in anywhere in the infield, whether it's third base or shortstop. You'll give guys a day off when they need to. So he is the utility guy that is a quintessential one. He's gonna probably come up with big hits for them too, especially down the line against Milwaukee next weekend or even other games too. So yeah, he definitely be the guy that can kind of help you win the NL Central.
And one more player off that bench. He hasn't played that much this year. We kind of expected that because an older guy. And of course, is Justin Turner. He had uh, that 2-run walk-off home run yesterday. I know some people said that he may be off this team and no and not in the near distant future. But if that was the case, he saved his job yesterday with that game-winning home run. Thoughts? Do you think Justin Turner still remains on this team?
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be interesting. I think he kind of showed you why that you still need him. So I would say he can kind of be a guy that's in your back pocket, especially when the roster is here for 40, coming up, next month. So I think he could definitely be a guy that could definitely be kind of like that extra utility guy that the Cubs would have. So it's going to be interesting to see like if it is sort of like his swan song with this team. I don't think it is, but I think he just showed you why he is needed on this roster.
Yeah. And speaking of Justin Turner, I was listening to our good friends. All three of them are good friends of the show. Rahimi Harris and Mark Rudy on their midday show earlier today on 670 The Score, and they had Justin Turner on their show, and I caught part of it. And one thing that Justin Turner did say in that interview is that when Daniel Palencia blew the save yesterday, he mentioned that Palencia could have just went into the dugout and left and hit in the clubhouse. He stayed out there in the dugout with the rest of the teammates. And if you notice when Justin Turner hit that home run, who was the first one to greet him? Daniel Palencia. You know why? He was like, Palencia was like, yeah, you saved me from that blown save and you picked me up. So sometimes, as we say, LaKeena, when one guy is down or messes up, it's the next teammate to pick that guy up. And that's what happened yesterday. And Justin Turner just pointing out that moments like that is, and we talked about this too last week, and the chemistry and the friendships away from the ballpark is what helps make teams more unified. And Justin Turner, I thought, pointed out beautifully on his interview earlier today that Daniel Palencia was one of the first guys to greet him at home plate, and he said that was something big and something special there.
Well, yeah, because like he said, we can't say that for losing for not losing that series. So I think that definitely will help bring that up. So yeah, I think this is why you keep a guy like Turner on your team. So I think he's still going to be with this team through the rest of the season. Now your pitching matchups for the series against Cincinnati, Mike Soroka, he'll have his second start since joining the Cubs. He faces Nick Lodolo, and you got Shota against Andrew. No, not Andrew Abbott. He's actually going to come on Wednesday against Kay Horton to finish up the series. It'll be Imanado versus Zach Lytle. So, there's no reason why the Cubs shouldn't win 2 out of 3 against Cincinnati. I know Cincinnati's kind of given them fits the last couple of times they played, but they definitely win 2 out of 3 in that series, and perhaps maybe hopefully they can gain some ground in Milwaukee while Milwaukee's in the tougher part of their schedule coming up.
And I think for the Cubs tonight, this very game, this opening series game, is important for the Cubs tonight. A couple of reasons why. You mentioned with the pitching matchup or the Michael Soroka. This will be his first start at Wrigley Field since being acquired last Thursday at the trade deadline. Hopefully, he can give you 4 or 5, maybe 6 innings if things are going well, but definitely 4 or 5 innings, keeping the team in the ball game. And number 2, Cincinnati, since they had to play resume that game yesterday at the racetrack, they coming in tired. They were supposed to be in Chicago yesterday, but due to the rain out last Saturday, they had to finish up that game in Tennessee yesterday. So I know that someone was going to say, well, yeah, we're rested up, but that game didn't finish till middle of the afternoon yesterday, so they had to fly here to Chicago. So you may catch Cincinnati in the tired mode tonight. So let's see if the Cubs can jump all over that Cincinnati Reds pitching tonight. And Nicola Dodo has been pitching well for Cincinnati. So let's see how the Cubs can approach him tonight and see if they can catch Cincinnati out guard since they're coming in tired, finishing up that game from yesterday from the rain out last Saturday.
We'll talk about that series, and also too, what's wrong with the Yankees and of course the White Sox? So they get 2 out of 3 against the Angels. Probably should have swept that series against them, but I digress. So LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. More weekend and baseball talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey Maggette, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Number one,
we've got to start.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Monday extravaganza edition, the first one for the month of August. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
Yes, we can continue the baseball talk. First, hitting up the Southside Hitmen and the best or worst from the weekend in Major League Baseball. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
White Sox take 2 out of 3 against the Angels. You probably said they probably should have, won all 3 games, but I digress. They were actually up in that game yesterday, and of course, the pitching kind of just, got away from them. Taylor Ward, I should say, hit a 3-1 home run in the 9th inning. They were tied at 5, and of course, Ward hit a 3-run home run to help salvage a win in that series. Unfortunately, Miguel Vargas is now in the IL with a little bleach strain, so he's going to be out for a little bit. Savale, of course, it'll be interesting to see if he's still going to be around by September. He pitched a nice one-hit gem, going into the 7th. Of course, the Sox beat the Angels on Saturday in that game 1-0. They already have surpassed last year's total. They're 42-70. So, but things looking up here. But again, Sid, it's the little things here that kind of I know White Sox fans want to latch on to something, but unfortunately that game yesterday, especially, I think it kind of makes you want to put pause and take a little bit of baby steps, I guess.
Yeah, let me start with the bad first to get it out the way. After I came home from the Bears Family Fest, we'll get to the Bears at the top of next hour. After I came home from that, I turned on the game. I was like, 5-0. There's okay, the Sox should score a couple more to put this thing away. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Sean Burke pitched his ass off yesterday. 7 strikeouts, 2 walks over 5 in the 3rd innings, but he gave up 3 earned runs. And of course, Mike Vassell and the rest of that bullpen was actually been pitching well. They just did not have it yesterday, and so the White Sox failed to sweep. But that's another series win for Chicago Southside. I know the Sox have been terrible on the road so far this season, but they really picked it up at the end of June. Going through July and as we enter August, playing much better on the road. So, and the Sox still have one of the best records in baseball since the All-Star break. So you have to give manager real Venable credit for that. Now going to last Friday's and Saturday's performances, which was totally dominated by pitching. Shane Smith, the All-Star, who's now back. He kind of struggled Friday, only pitching 4 in the 3rd innings with 4 strikeouts and 4 walks, but you expected that from him as he's trying to get his timing back. And as we said before, many people others have said on the show that it was a break, using air quotes and trying to not stretch him out too far, because many of the young guys on the starting set, this would be their first time pitching extended innings this year. So that was kind of what happened to Shane Smith. Now, you mentioned Aaron Zavalli was very impressive last Saturday. 6 in the 3rd innings, 2 walks and 8 strikeouts, only giving up 1 hit. Very impressive. I know many Sox fans, including you, thought that there was a slight chance he might have been moved last Thursday, but no. You need veteran guys like that to eat up innings to help you young guys in that clubhouse. So great job by him. The other couple of things, the players that I'm really impressed with that we saw stand out in this series, Edgar Carroll, as we talked about early in the year, this pitcher said likes him a lot. He calls a good game, and he can throw runners out, and he can come through with that bat as well. You saw all 3 phases of that in this series against the Angels. And Costa Montgomery, I'm not going to sit here and say he's American League Rookie of the Year just yet, but that young man is very impressive. Not only that he has the glove, but he's adding the bat as well. You saw that in this last series against the Angels.
Could be interesting to see if he can keep that up, because like you said, you're seeing, folks, the only thing is that guys are looking at tape on you now, so you better be careful if especially as we get closer and closer into the end of the season. You're gonna get more teams are gonna be looking at you, so you might have to be careful there. Now, Kyle Teal, of course, on that Saturday game, he becomes the first MLB player to catch a 1-hitter. Usually it's a no-hitter, but 1-hitter in this case. He also drove in the only run of the game. So, of course, no one has done that since Buster posted it all the way back in 2014 when he was with the Giants. They did it against the Rockies. So, like I said, a nice showing so far. They're 2-1 the road trip. They face Seattle. We'll talk about them in a second here. Starting tomorrow night, here are your pitching matchups for this series. You got Mr. Davis Martin. This is tomorrow against Brian Wu. That should be an
Can you
interesting.
woo? Shout out Jeffrey Osborne.
That should be an interesting matchup though. Still, of course, you got Jonathan Cannon. This is Wednesday's matchup. I should be saying it'll be Jonathan Cannon against George Kirby, and also for Thursday the rubber match you got Shane Smith going up against Logan Gilbert. So I think the Sox could win one of these games. I feel like, but then Seattle's been playing a little bit better lately. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing like where they match up. I mean, these two just played a couple of weeks ago back at the shop at G rate. So and then Seattle won that series. So it'll be interesting to see if the White Sox can muster up one in this 3-gamer.
Yes, we talked about here before over the last several years. This season has been no different. Seattle has great starting pitching, and the Sox are going to face some heavyweights in their series, as you just mentioned. But what's different, and I think you can agree, LaKeena, we talked about it last Friday on the show, the day after the trade deadline. Seattle has some pop in with their step now in terms of bats. So, of course, you have Randy Rosarena, you have Julio Rodriguez, but you have Josh Naylor now, who's been there for almost a month now. And then you just picked up Eugenio Suarez from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So the White Sox are not just going to face good pitching, they're going to face a talented lineup as well. So the pitcher who has been very good for the South Series, they're going to be up into the task. And I think taking 2 games should be the goal. Realistically, I don't think the White Sox are going to sweep the Mariners. I don't see that happening. But I'm with you. I think they'll take 1 game. But I'll up the ante. I expect the Sox to take 2. I know it's going to be a tough task, but this is what we talked about with the Cubs last segment. That Seattle's ballpark, I'm still going to call it Safeco. I'm not calling their corporate name, but Safeco is a pitcher's friendly ballpark. Yes, if you get in the right spot, you can knock some home runs out of there, but that's particularly a pitcher's park, and that advantage plays to both teams, in my opinion. But the way the White Sox have been scoring runs lately, you don't expect to see a lot of home runs from them in this series. If it is, you just caught Seattle on the wrong day. But I expect this to be a low-scoring series. Let's see if the Sox can be aggressive, hit and run, steal bases, and let's see if we can limit the White Sox bullpen, because even what happened yesterday, hopefully the Stars will be up to this task, because that's a very tough lineup they're facing across from them.
Totally different Seattle squad than what you saw a couple weeks back when they were here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that series. Now, going to the rest of baseball, what the heck is going on with the Yankees? They got swept by the Marlins of all teams, including losing 13-12. And, it's their first ever sweep. We're talking about the Marlins over the Yankees. And, this is not good if you're a Yankees fan. I know Yankees fans everywhere are freaking out. And I heard sports radio in New York and in the Bronx area anyway, and they're not very happy right now.
Well, you get inconsistent starting pitching, your bullpen's in flux, and you have no Aaron Judge. This is what happens. Now, on the flip side for the Miami Marlins, they've been playing great since the All-Star break. Now they're at 500. Do I still believe they're going to make a push for the playoffs like they did a couple years ago? No, because they don't have the talent. I give All-Star Kevin Stowers credit. He's been hitting the bat over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and some of the other young guys are coming through. But this is more about the Yankees' shortcomings, to be honest with you. As I mentioned, no Aaron Judge, and your starting pitching has been inconsistent. And plus, their defense has still been a little suspect. This is what happens. But I still believe that the Yankees are a playoff team. Is this a World Series team? No. And if Aaron Judge is out for any extended period of time, they really are in trouble. But I still believe that the Yankees, once they get Aaron Judge back, they will make the playoffs. But after that, I don't know.
Yeah, Devin Williams has been a total flop for the Yankees so far as the closer. So, it's been pretty bad. Now, on the flip side, though, for Boston, they won 5 in a row, including sweeping Houston. Now, do you think that they're making things? I guess they're making things interesting in the AL East. I know Toronto. They had a tough series against the Royals, losing 2 out of 3 in that series. They've lost. They've not had a good showing still since coming back from the All-Star break. They've lost like 6 of their last 8. So that's not a good so either for Toronto. But can Boston keep it up?
I think they can because some of the young guys, one former White Sox prospect in particular, Romy Gonzalez, who had another big hit yesterday, is starting to come through. Don't forget about Wilmer Abreu. He's had a nice stint or two for the last couple of weeks swinging the bat. And don't forget, you have Garrett Crochet. He's one of the league leaders in strikeouts, and he's a top 3 Cy Young candidate for the AL Cy Young. So we thought they were going to punt, quote unquote, punt on the season. Those young guys like, oh nope, we still got some fight left in us. I think I did pick Boston to win the division. I gotta go look back at the tape, but I think they're gonna be competitive. They're more than competitive, but given the Yankees struggles, and I'm still not worried about Toronto, but given the Yankees struggles, I think Boston will make that division race interesting. I think the not the White Sox, but the Red Sox have enough to be a wild card team. Now, on the flip side for Toronto, they're just going through a tough stretch right now. I still believe they're a playoff team. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not having a big year, even though he was named an All-Star. But Toronto is still a young and strong ball club. And when things are right, you don't want to play them, especially come playoff time, should they get in.
Yeah, that should be interesting there in the AL East. Now going to the AL Central, I know Detroit hasn't had a good last. Well, yeah, they did sweep the D-bats early last week. They did lose 2-3 against Philadelphia. On the flip side, though, Tariq Skubal outdueled Zach Wheeler in that matchup on Saturday, and but it was a great game last night. You saw that I was there Sunday Night Baseball game, and of course Christopher Sanchez had a nice bounce back win from that loss against the White Sox last week, and of course Mr. Kyle Schwarber hit another home run. It's his 38th home run of the season. He's already reached that number in all 4 seasons he's been with the Phillies. He's the first player in MLB history to hit at least 3 home runs in the first 4 seasons with any team. So I don't know if maybe you could put him in the middle of the AL MVP race now. Skubal, of course, like I said, outdueled Mr. Wheeler. He had 10 strikeouts, no walks. His last 3 road starts, he has had at least 10 strikeouts and 0 walks. Only other MLB pitchers did that in the modern era. Clayton Kershaw did all the way back in 2016. So, I think with Detroit, unfortunately for them, they're in a really bad division. I know Cleveland didn't have a good showing this weekend. I know the Royals did okay, but no Minnesota. They that's a fire sale for them. So yeah, I think Detroit's going to do just fine in the AL Central.
Couple of things about Detroit. One, they got to pick it up offensively, like they did for the first 2.5 months of the year. And number 2, they got to hope that their other starting pitchers will start to pick it up, and you don't have to rely on Tariq Skubal to stop your losing streaks. That's the second thing. On the flip side, for Philadelphia, having the actual closer is making a difference. Johan Duran was acquired from the Minnesota Twins last Thursday in the trade deadline. As we said, LaKeena, how many times have we said it throughout this year and through last 2 or 3 years during the show via Zoom that the Philadelphia Phillies need to strengthen up their bullpen. Johan Duran was the perfect pickup for Philadelphia, and he showed this worth in this series. So this is one of the reasons why they took 2 out of 3 from Detroit.
Yeah, see, get a closer works wonders for you. So I guess we got their answer, Mr. Duran. Now going to AL West, they just get a little interesting there in that AL West. Of course, we talked about Houston didn't have a good weekend. Like I said, they got swept by the Red Sox. Now the Mariners, they won 2 out of 3 in their series. Well, 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 was against Texas, so they're right there. And then only 2.5 back in that division. Also, Texas, they lose a little bit of ground there. They're at 4.5 back. So, who do you think has the edge in that division, the AL West?
It should be Seattle because of the players that picked up at the deadline. In particular, Josh Nail. I know Josh Nail was picked up last month, but in particular, Eugenio Suarez, as we mentioned in our last, in our segment talking about the White Sox. Looking at Seattle's schedule, they should be able to gain some ground here playing the White Sox, and the offense should still continue to roll to go along with their starting pitchers. So I give Seattle the edge there. Houston, then they have a great weekend, as you mentioned, against Boston. I saw some of the highlights from yesterday. Framber Valdez, one of the best young left-handers in the game. He didn't have a good start yesterday. Of course, the defense behind him was bad as well. They committed a couple of errors, so Boston took advantage of that. Texas has been a mystery team to me. I know they were in the World Series a couple years ago, but they just cannot hit consistently to stay above 500. They still have a good team, but their offense is not consistent enough for me. So I'm giving Seattle the edge here in the AL West. Houston's good, but their pitchers, their two best pitchers, Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez, got knocked around this series against Boston. We'll see if both those guys can bounce back in their next starts.
Yeah, our buddy Brennan Schutz. I know he's not on here, but yeah, I'm sure he was not very happy that Houston got swept by Boston. But it's just Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you as we talk some weekend in baseball here on Second City Sports here. Philadelphia, we talked about them earlier in the NL East. Of course, they won 2 out of 3 against. 1-2 out 3 against Detroit. Now, if it wasn't for the Yankees, I think the Mets would be getting all the headlines in New York. They've lost 5 of their last 6. Of course, they lose 2 out of 3 against San Francisco. And yeah, the Mets, they've had some injury issues as well. Their guys aren't hitting the ball very well either. So, it's yeah. Like I said, it's definitely a 2-team race in the NL East.
Yeah, I think that the Mets will be okay. We talked about it on our show last Friday about the players they acquired, the strengthening of their bullpen, but it's still going to be left up to the likes of Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil, and some of the other guys to carry this Mets offense because they have too much talent for it to slip away. So I think the Mets will be fine. Yes, they're going through a tough stretch right now, but their offense is going to have to carry the day, and their starting pitcher is going to have to pick it back up again.
Yep, going to be interesting in the NL East. Now going to the Central, Milwaukee. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to hang on for this one. I know Bryce Terang. I know he had 2 home runs. 14-3 over the Nationals. Okay, but yeah, I think I just don't see them. Look, we know that's they're gonna go into run into a little bit of a wall here. Now it could be one of those things where they run into a wall. Unfortunately, it happens in September, and is the worst time for that to happen. I mean, I'm not wishing it on them, but. It could happen. I mean,
it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it happen before. It happened a couple of years ago. So, yeah, there's no way they can keep all this up with the offense. I know Andrew Vaugh's hitting the ball very well. Thanks a lot, Chris Getz. But, yeah, this is sort of like a thing where, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I don't see the Brewers can keep this up.
Well, they did what they were supposed to do, sweep an inferior team, and that's what they did against the Nationals. 38 runs scored in that series off of 56 hits, very impressive. But as well as I do, it's going to come down to their starting pitching. And it did get knocked around in their last game last Wednesday afternoon against Chicago's Northside Ball Club. So their pitching, even though it was roughed up toward the end of that Cubs series, you didn't need them in this series against Washington. And we'll see who they play this week. They're taking advantage of who they're playing, but they still got some tough opponents left on their schedule for the month of August. So we'll see what Milwaukee's really made of.
Going to the West here as the Dodgers take 2 out of 3 against Tampa. They really needed that win yesterday. So, I mean, guys are coming back, healthy. So you hope that's going to be.
Blake Snell returned as well.
Yeah. So hopefully this will be a chance for them to turn the corner. San Diego took care of business against the Cardinals, winning 2 out of 3 there. And we talked about the Giants. I mean, but I don't think the Giants. It might be a little bit too much for the Giants to overcome. Could they stick it to a wild card spot? Sure, but even that might be a big reach here. But it looks like the Dodgers and the Padres are going to be between those 2 teams in the NL West. So we'll see who has the edge there.
Yeah, as we talked about all year long, the Dodgers are trying to get their guys healthy. I know Clayton Kershaw's been pitching well as of late in his last 3 starts. Blake Snell, as I mentioned, returned to face his former team in that series down there in Tampa over the weekend. Excuse me, I know Shohei Ohtani. Will he pitch again this year? We'll see what happens, but he's doing most of the talking this year with his bat. And so, but what's wrong with Freddie Freeman? But most importantly, what's wrong with Mookie Betts? This is not a typical Mookie Betts year. I know he had a little health scare with that flu to start the year. He didn't play against the Cubs in Japan. Excuse me, but what does Dave Roberts do? Does he move him near the top of the lineup? Will he let him stay down? Move him down to 8th and 9th in the lineup? What can Dave Roberts do to help get Mookie Betts going?
Yeah, that's going to be the thing here. And Freddie Freeman didn't have a RBI yesterday in that game. To help shut out the Rays in the rematch to win that series. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like like I said, Blake Snell did not have a good outing, and he actually got hit off Yonder Diaz, his former teammate, hit 2 home runs off him. So
Yeah.
that kind of killed them in that game on Saturday, but. They did bounce back, and hopefully whatever was wrong with Mookie Betts, hopefully can figure it out, and hopefully the Dodgers are starting to kind of turn the corner with some of their guys coming back.
Yeah, as we talked about the Shohei Otanis and the Freddie Freemans and the Teoscar Hernandez and Andy Pages, some of those guys. But if Mookie Betts is not right between now and playoff time, you can forget about the Dodgers making another deep postseason run. Mookie Betts has to get right, and hopefully he can do it very soon.
Going to the schedule for this week in baseball, you got Houston and Miami. Houston hoping to get back on track, but you're facing a Marlins squad that's been playing very well lately. It's just coming back from the All-Star break. Minnesota and Detroit, we'll see. Detroit can bounce back after losing 2 out of 3 to Philadelphia. San Francisco continues their East Coast trip against Pittsburgh. You got Baltimore and Philadelphia. You got Cleveland and the Mets. Kansas City and Boston. Milwaukee and Atlanta. Now, we didn't talk about that the Atlanta against Cincinnati, that series down there in Tennessee. It was a nice crowd. I think rain kind of killed that part of it. And unfortunately, yesterday there wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't really. The crowd was kind of sparse, unfortunately. So, but yeah, it was like I'm sure MLB wants to kind of do these kind of series every year. So we'll see if they can do that. And of course, you got Cincinnati against the Cubs.
Finish out the rest of the schedule for tonight. The series that will start tonight. The New York Yankees will visit Texas down at Globe Life Field. Toronto will face Colorado in the Rocky Mountains. Tampa Bay will face the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. You can see that first game tonight on MLB Network for some of you. Adrian Houser, the former White Sox pitcher, will make his debut in the Tampa Bay Rays uniform in that one. While others will watch San Diego at Arizona, their first game of that series can be seen on MLB Network. J.P. Sears, the former Athletics pitcher, will make his debut for the San Diego Padres. And, of course, you have speaking of the St. Louis Cardinals, they'll face the Los Angeles Dodgers as they'll continue their West Coast road trip tonight.
You got the A's against the Nationals. These are series that are starting tomorrow, and I think you got I got Toronto and Colorado. Yeah, okay. I think. And Minnesota and Detroit. Oh, well, we already did that one too. Let's see. Yeah, I think those are all the series they'll be starting tomorrow. Of course, the TBS game of the week on Tuesday. Tomorrow, you got the Cubs hosting Cincinnati. There will be a regional action. You got the Padres and the D-backs, the Cardinals and the Dodgers. And on Wednesday, of course, you got a MLB smorgasbord on the MLB Network. You got Cleveland and the Mets, Twins, and Detroit. Those are regional action at noon. And at 3:10, you got the Dodgers and finish up their series against the Cardinals over at Dodger Stadium. FS1 game of the weekend on Wednesday, you got the Brewers and the Braves. And, of course, you got that White Sox-Seattle series. You can finish that up. I don't know. I'm sure it's probably getting blacked out in Chicago. So, unfortunately, the Sox fans won't be able to watch that on MLB Network. You probably will you get San Diego and Arizona. That's just scheduled for this week in MLB.
Yeah, just a program, for tomorrow's Cincinnati and Cubs broadcast on TBS. That can be seen nationally on TBS. It'll be blocked out locally in Cincinnati and, of course, here in Chicago.
And that's your schedule for this week in MLB.
Our number one's doors have been slammed shut. Our number two's doors will open up following this timeout. The Bears had their first showing in front of the Soldier Field faithful. How did the offense fare? What did the defense do? You're surely witnessed it all. I'll give you a first-hand report coming up. The NBA on NBC keeps adding talent, and rightfully so, as they boost their coverage, which will start in the fall. We'll have other sports media news, and time permitting, we'll salute an old school TV legend, and we'll have old school TV Monday. That and a whole lot more. You stick and say right here on the Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports, right here on Sports Soul Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports. So this Monday extravaganza edition, the first one for the month of August. You're locked and loaded and real live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. You know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Or again at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find my LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
As we dive into the Bears training camp report and review the Hall of Fame speeches from this past weekend's Pro Football Hall of Fame induction class for 2025, if you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects as we kick off hour number 2 of this fabulous program, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid, you were at Family Fest yesterday for the Bears as they have their first official practice to the public at Soldier Field. Well, I guess some impressions. I guess it depends on who you talk to. There are some people that said that, look, it's your typical, the first year, struggles. The defense looked good. The offense actually looked okay. But then you got others that are panicking already. So I said you were there. What was your first impressions of seeing the new look Bears, if you will?
Before I get started, the Bears gave a couple of items away to the fans. 23,000 faithful that showed up yesterday at Soldier Field. This is a thumbs up Bears fan because it was a little hot, but you're surely benefited from sitting in the shade, so I didn't have to use this. And of course, they gave you the scorecard for the players that participated in training camp yesterday. I don't know if you can see it. And of course, these are the pictures of the new Bears rookie class for 2025. And of course, there's the roster sheet right there. So you'll surely be referring to this roster sheet as we go along here. My impressions of the practice yesterday, the offense did struggle. The first team offense did struggle to come out the gate in the early part of practice, but Caleb Williams did look good in some spots. He had a good scramble and run later on in that practice, but and Colston Loveland did have one nice catch there, but the offense also struggled with the false starts. I believe there was three of them, and they had a safety. DeAndre Swift was tackled in the end zone later on in the practice. So the offense was kind of up and down there. They did some nice things going towards the middle of the practice, but in the beginning of the practice, it did not look good. Now the defense was flying around as usual. As we talk about all the time, the defense around this time in the beginning of training camp, they're headed off the office because, especially with dealing with this team, we talked about it a million times. I felt like already that you learn a new system with the new head coach Ben Johnson. You still try to get players in perfect position to make plays. And a couple of players that I want to talk about. TJ Edwards had a nice practice yesterday. Jaquan Brisker, we talked about on this show before. When he's healthy, he's one of the best young safeties in the league. He was all around that football yesterday. Whenever the first team defense was out, he was all over that football, talking trash not only to his defensive teammates, but talking trash to the offensive mates on the other side of the ball yesterday. So that defense, whether it's the first team, the second team, or the third team, they were flying all around that ball yesterday. If you had to ask me who had the better practice from beginning to end yesterday, it was the defense.
Now I'm thinking that again depends on who you talk to when it comes to it. I think there are definitely some rough spots from what I can see, for people that we know that cover the Bears, that someone were there covering that practice. So I'm like I said, I'm kind of like, okay, I know Bayesian had a couple of nice throws there. It was really more the second and third team offense. Actually, the second and third team offense actually looked better than the first team. But again, you got to think that, look, you got to remember, folks, this is also practices too. So it's going to be interesting to see how everyone else does. I know our buddies over at WGN Sports, last night when they were talking about it, it seems like, I think they warned our buddies, both friends of the show, Jared Payne and Chris Bode. I think they both of them said, also our girl Kayla Charlotte too, who was there at the practice yesterday. I think all of them said that, look, I think they kind of warned everybody, don't be surprised if it takes take this, especially the first team offense, like maybe a couple of weeks to kind of like get their feet wet and kind of get into a rhythm, because look, this is a pretty complicated offense that Johnson is structuring. So we'll see how Williams looks. See if we can get it to DJ Moore and to Roma Dunze, Luther Burden the third, of course, the rookie. We'll see how that offensive line looks, and it's definitely gonna be one of those things where the defense probably is in a better spot right now than the offense is. So it's going to be kind of like I said, don't be surprised. Like, once they do their practices against Miami coming up later this week, of course, they play them on Sunday, the first preseason game. I think you may not see the first team, that much on either side. So again, take that as you will. But I'm kind of interested to see how this team looks. We'll get a first glance at, in a whole, in a game situation of how this team looks so far. But again, if they're good, okay, great. If they're not, then I don't think people should panic at this point. But I just think right now, I just think it's a little bit too early to kind of say anything.
Yeah, as we said before, this is, I think, the 12th or 13th practice that the Bears have had. And I know those light pads yesterday at Soldier Field, those guys were hitting, trust me. But you only had 13 practices already, so it's still going to take some time. But couple of key players, they had some outstanding plays that I wanted to point out as I go to my scorecard here. Number 88, Stephen Carlson, the third tight end on the roster. He had a nice catch off a deflection. As I mentioned, the defense was flying around the ball yesterday. They could have had a couple more interceptions, but on that play, Daniel Carlson caught the pass out. That was a very impressive catch by him. It was about 2 or 3 players on the defensive side that had a chance at the interception, but Daniel Carlson kept his concentration and caught the loose ball up in the air. I also want to talk about, if I could find him on this roster sheet, J.P. Richardson, number 26. He had a couple of nice catch and runs yesterday with that second and third team yesterday. So I want to see if he's going to get some playing time this coming Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. He had a couple of nice plays out there yesterday as well. A couple other notes from training camp. Kareem Amagaji did not practice yesterday. Asi Trapella got most of the run with the first team. and Bryson Jones got some run at left tackle as well. As we talked about on our last couple of shows. That starting left tackle position is up for grabs, and as we predict, I think Bryson Jones will get that first crack because he's entering a contract year, even though he's coming off an injury. So that was another note from the training camp. Practice yesterday at Soldier Field. As I mentioned, Daniel Carlson had a nice catch there. DeAndre Swift looked okay in my opinion running the football. He had a nice screening running back screen catch earlier in the practice, and as you mentioned, Tyson Bagent looked good with the second team. Case Keenum had some snaps out there. He looked okay for a third string quarterback, but I was really impressed by Tyson Bagent yesterday. So if the job was up today as far as being a second quarterback, I think it's Tyson Bagent because he knows his offense. He's been with the team the last couple years, and he has an edge on Case Keenum right now. But their first team offense, they did have some nice moments. Roma Duze caught a couple of passes, but with a couple of the false starts and not lining up correctly. Ben Johnson is not having it, and he was very honest with the media yesterday about that following practice. So those kind of the things that I took away from the practice yesterday.
Yeah, we're interested to see if Stephen Carlson can kind of be a part of that. Going to be that third tight end. Usually they don't keep only two, so you got to wonder between him and Durham's Smythe. I think you got to wonder who's going to be kind of like the odd man out, if you will. So we'll probably see these three preseason games coming up that who will be kind of like at the edge there, that third tight end spot. And like I said, I think it's going to be interesting. Like the back end guys, those are probably the ones that are that you want to see. Like can you see like maybe a Tysheem Johnson could be that second safety after Beard and Kevin Byard and Jonathan Owens. You've got Zach Frazier, I should say it, or Nick McLeod. I mean, with Jalen Johnson, he may not start he may not start the season. So you got to think that that's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. So I'm kind of like in that realm of, okay, who's going to have that edge there coming up on the back end? So that's really going to be the key here, I feel like.
I think that's going to be important into this first game coming up on this upcoming Sunday against the Miami Dolphins. Which backups are going to step up, and who's going to have the confidence and the edge to go get the job done. And we kind of saw that a little bit yesterday in practice. I think the backups look better than the starters, in my opinion, overall. But it's going to be up to those backups to take advantage of the opportunity that's going to be given to them in this first preseason game. You may see a series, maybe two series from the first team. We'll talk about it more on Friday, but in this first preseason game. But I think it's going to be more about the backups for this first preseason game. A couple other notes, I promise, and then we'll move on. Colston Loveland looked okay. He did end up catching a touchdown pass. Cole Kmet caught a touchdown pass later on in the practice, and Kyle Monangai scored on a rushing touchdown as well.
Yeah, I think. All right, so like I said, we'll talk more about when they do their practices with Miami and such. Well, we'll see. It's going to be interesting though. Nonetheless, here is this Second City Sports on Sports Social. LaKeena, McGee, Steve Brown with you as we talk more NFL here. We'll also talk about we'll recap the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction over the weekend. We'll talk about that now. Some news and notes from the NFL, and it's gonna be interesting here now. It will be Micah Parsons' turns, I guess, and even though Jerry Jones has said that he is not going to trade, they're not going to trade, but the Cowboys are not going to trade Parsons. Take that as you will, but he was at practice yesterday. He kind of stayed away from the media. So what do you think? I know we talked about it a little bit on Friday, and like I know there was some. I listen to both sports radio stations. And I know Bears fans are just like they're kind of. It's just kind of crazy how all this sort of like transpired. But what do you think about this whole thing? And will he get traded on the off chance? And if so, where do you think he goes?
I don't think that Micah Parsons is going to get traded. This is a power move right here. We know we talked about, as you mentioned on our last show last Friday, that Jerry Jones has caved into players in the past. So it wasn't the best ideas on some of those players, like Ezekiel Elliott back a decade ago. It turned out it was a bad move as far as them signing him to that long-term deal at the time. I know you paid CD Lamb and you finally pay Dak Prescott before last season. So, and you know how long that dragged out. So this is how Jerry Jones does does business, whether you like it or not. And we went through the trade scenarios last Friday. We won't go through it here. I still believe that Micah Parsons is going to be with the Dallas Cowboys at the end of the day. Now, as far as bringing it back home here to Chicago, the Bears will have to give up more draft capital than they have right now. Multiple first-round picks and maybe a second-rounder for the next couple years. Is he worth it? No. And plus, the Bears don't have that much money under the cap to make that happen. So I don't see it. Michael Parsons, yes, he can play the end, but he's more like a linebacker rush in. So I don't. Let's say his talent could be used on the Bears, but the Bears don't have enough draft capital to make that happen. I don't think they have that much room left on that salary cap to make it happen anyway.
Yeah, so. I agree. Because he's gonna be doing a lot of money. I'm talking about Parsons. Mm-hmm. So they may not be. It might be too rich for the Bears' blood, but we'll see what happens there. Now, Dolphins. Speaking of the Dolphins, since they're gonna be practicing with them this week, Mr. Zach Sealer has agreed to a new 3-year contract extension up to $67.75 million, with $44 million of that guaranteed. So. He went to a couple of Pro Bowls and such. He's one of the probably more consistent guys on that front seven for the Dolphins. So a nice pay bump by him and a nice move by the Dolphins. So you got to think, Mike McDaniel, you got to think he's on the hot seats right now. So what do you think about this move?
Yeah, it's a nice move for the Dolphins, but as you mentioned, they are on Mike McDaniel's strong possibility that he's on the hot seat this year. We know about the another angle that's probably going to get taught. He probably won't play in the preseason game against the Bears this upcoming week. But Tyreek Hill, he's been outspoken the last couple of years saying that he wants out. So if Tyreek Hill wants out, first of all, he's going to have to stay healthy. And number two, he has to be consistent. And number two, obviously, is the health of Tua Tagovailoa. Now, he did look good when he came back, but Miami, it was too late for Miami to make that push for the playoffs. If he stays healthy, the Dolphins have a shot. If he doesn't, it's all downhill from there. So a big year for the Dolphins coming up. I know Buffalo's consistent is the consensus favorite to win the AFC East. The question is who's going to finish behind them, and Miami is up there along with the Jets, and then followed by New England.
Well, speaking of Buffalo, James Cook set out practice yesterday, telling NFL Network that nothing, it's just business. So here we go again, another holdout. So here we go.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen was up there for MVP last year, but I think the real MVP last year for that Buffalo offense was James Cook. And you saw that in stretches in the AFC title game last year at Kansas City. Sean McDermott gave him the ball a little bit more in that game, they would have won. But I digress. But James Cook, as we said last year, let him cook. And he did that to help out Josh Allen in that Buffalo offense last year. I think they're going to get something worked out at the end of the day, because if you leave Josh Allen out there by himself, he's going to get exposed. And you can forget about any Super Bowl talk for the Buffalo Bills. So I think a deal eventually is going to get done, because James Cook has been the best running back in the offense ever since Sean McDermott took over a few years ago.
Going to be very interesting there as well. Shedeur Sanders, of course, rookie QB from Cleveland. He said that he doesn't want his dad, of course, is Deion Sanders out there, Coach Prime out there in practice right now. Probably a smart thing on his part. So I think he just wants to concentrate on trying to get the starting job, because it is up for grabs though. So it'll be between him and Dylan Gabriel, and Flacco. So that's going to be interesting down there in Cleveland to see, over there in Cleveland to see who gets that starting job. But yeah, I think to his credit, he doesn't want any distractions. So very smart on his part.
Yeah, and plus Deion's recovering from the surgery he had to remove that cancerous tumor from his body, so he wasn't going to fly over there anyway. And plus, he's got to get ready for a competitive season with the Colorado Buffaloes. But do you really think, LaKeena, that the Cleveland is going to keep quarterbacks? No, I'll be surprised if they keep 3.
Yeah, like I said, I think that it's Flacco's job to lose, and if he doesn't get it, I'm sure he's probably going to want to ask to be released so he can find somewhere to probably helps maybe a contending team that if they lose their quarterback, to injury, especially if JJ McCarthy stinks in Minnesota. Just saying, just put not not just making little observations. No, not putting nothing out there, but it'll be interesting to see what happens now. Anything else NFL wise that caught your attention before we go into talk about the Pro Football Hall of Fame on Saturday?
Let's go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame speeches. I thought that all four of those guys with Eric Allen, Eric Allen, Jared Allen, of course, Sterling Sharp, and Antonio Guess. All four of those speeches were tremendous.
Yeah, let's start with, of course, Jared Allen coming out of the gate. We know he's a very religious guy. You saw his dad represented, with the cowboy hats and all wearing suits and stuff. It was very, very cute, and very adorable. He, like I said, we know he's a very religious guy. I'm talking about Jared Allen, and he kind of used his faith. He actually took a shot at the Bears because we all, if you remember his 2 incidents with the Bears, he was not. He gave the brass fits, with his injury, so that's why he really didn't. Whistle that much, but didn't play that much when he was here in Chicago. But yeah, he thanked his wife, his 2 daughters, and the rest of the family, his family, his mom, his dad, his step parents, which is really sweet, and all of his coaches and such. So I thought that was a really nice speech by him.
Yeah, he gave Kevin Warren some love. He's like, good luck to Kevin Warren, but except when they play the Vikings. But most people that didn't follow the sport. Yeah, he got his actual start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, he thanked the late Lamar Hunt and the Hunt family for drafting him. Of course, he got his in his prime. He was with the Minnesota Vikings, so his loyalty is mostly to them. So I thought it was a great speech about faith and family, and they were all represented well. And for him to come from where he came from, I thought for what he gave through, and the time limit from all those guys, they kind of explained it. In very limited time frame that they were allowed to express themselves. Although Jared Allen we were talking about first, although it was very impressive. He's a very enlightening, humorous guy. And I was like, okay, I didn't know that much about him. Yeah, he was a little bit animated on the field, but not to the extent that I thought it was going to carry on to his speech. But I really enjoyed it. He had a little personality to him. I loved it.
Yeah, so it was very interesting, and also too, you got that little dry wit about him. So. There you go. There, and of course, next up was Mr. Sterling Sharp. Of course, he waited 26 years. And actually, they made a joke that I guess as long as ESPN has had the coverage of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that's probably how long it took for him to get to the Hall of Fame. So it was long overdue for him. And of course, he brought younger brother, of course, Shannon Sharp, fellow Hall of Famer, brought him up. That was a really nice moment there, and he kind of showed tributes to some of his teammates and such, of course, stepping up after their dad passed away, and because he passed away, he passed away when he was really young too. So yeah, it was a very sweet speech by him. Of course, he was the one that got very emotional. So that was a really nice speech by Sterling.
And also too, you talked about growing up in a small town in Georgia, just like his brother Sterling did, and he was talking about in order to become a leader, you must be a good follower, and that was a theme throughout his speech, and he gave. He gave a mention to the head coaches that he played for, but he gave some love to the assistant coaches that helped him along the way. And one name that was noted to me was Sherm Lewis, and Sterling got very emotional, of course, during his time in Green Bay, and Sherm Lewis was one of the hottest coordinators in the game at the time. Of course, he didn't get a head coaching job, but that was old ancient history. But the theme of Sterling Sharp's speech was to be a good leader, he had to be a great follower. And so he's like all the lessons that he learned through football, through high school, college, and of course in the pros. He like to be a good leader, you had to be a good follower. So I thought that was very important, and it was very a strong theme being carried out in his speech.
And of course, next up we got Mr. Eric Allen. Of course, he played for numerous teams, including the Eagles and the Raiders. And he actually, has all the stats there. Of course, he had interceptions. 54 career interceptions, 787 total tackles. He had 9 defensive touchdowns, and his theme was basically like faith and family. Of course, all 4 of his sons were there. His oldest son presented him, and that was a really, really sweet moment.
I thought that was very awesome.
Very sweet moment there. Of course, he and his wife, they've been together for 44 years. They were high school sweethearts. I mean, that's dedication of love right there, folks. Nice example there with and he, of course, dedicated to some of his this former teammates. He's now with the Raiders organization now. He and Mark Davis are really good friends. Of course, his father, of course, Mark Davis' father, Al, of course, signed him. So it was definitely a very poignant speech, and of course, he dedicated to when he was in Philadelphia. Of course, Jerome Brown. Of course, they were that great defense in the late '80s that probably should have got a chance to win a Super Bowl, but it didn't happen, unfortunately, due to injuries and such. But it was a very sweet speech. Probably one of if not the best speech of the day, I think.
Yeah, as you mentioned that he gave props to his four sons, not only as a group of them, he mentioned them as individuals. Like you could do some great things in this world. I like the way that you're living your life. I like this personality trait about you and this and that, and just all showing them love individually. Of course, mentioning his wife and the rest of their extended family. So I thought there's very poignant and also for him to do that. So it was all about family for him in this speech. And he's like, I'm there for you when you need me. I'm the center part of the family. We all had to stick together and do this together. So I thought that was very poignant, and it was a very great message delivered by him.
And of course, last but not least is Mr. Antonio Gates, who becomes the first Pro Bowl Hall of Fame to not have played a single down of college football. Of course, he got notoriety when he was at Kent State. Of course, they got as far as the Elite Eight, and I know he mentioned some of his teammates from that team there that they went on that great run. Of course, he mentioned a lot of his teammates. Of course, I think he has 3 kids, I believe, and of course, his dad passed away earlier this year, so I know he got very emotional when he talked about his family and his late father, especially, and and of course when he got to talk about his teammates, of course, most notably LaDainian Tomlinson, who is already in the Hall of Fame, of course, Phillip Rivers, who we'll talk about Phillip Rivers in a second here, but a very sweet speech. And of course, he said that I remember he said he was going to try not to cry. Of course, he cried like 3 times. So there you go, figure. But a very sweet speech, and I think we got to know him a little bit personally because we never get to know him too much when he was playing. So it was good to see kind of like very in depth and personal.
Couple things. I didn't know that Antonio Gates was originally from Detroit. And he gave Detroit some love there. What up, though? I think our good friend of the program, Mr. Monte S. Allen, would appreciate that. And number 2, closing his speech, he talked about everybody, no matter your ethnic background, your social background, we all need to be united together as a country here in the United States. I thought that was very awesome. Then, of course, number 3, you mentioned Phillip Rivers when he brought him up. After he brought up Doug Flutie, who threw him his first touchdown, of course, he mentioned Drew Brees second. Of course, when he brought up Phillip Rivers, he got the biggest ovation of them all. And I was like, as we talked about a few weeks ago, it shouldn't be too long before Phil Rivers will be delivering that speech, and Antonio Gates will be sitting in that front row in there looking at him as Phil Rivers will probably give his Hall of Fame speech.
Well, speaking of Phillip Rivers, he will be eligible next year. Of course, to some of the players that will be eligible for next year's Hall of Fame class, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Jason Witten, Frank Gore, Julian Edelman, Shady McCoy, Thomas Davis, Greg Olson, Alex Smith, Des Bryant, Stephen Gostkowski, and among others. Who do you think? Now, of course, they changed the rules a bit. I know there was some. I know Kurt Warner said that he felt that there should have been more guys. It should have been 4. I know they 4. Of course, I guess they changed the numbers of how they select. I guess like the top 7, and I guess they get pick 5 and. Kind of like how the baseball Hall of Famers do it. So, but it's going to be a little bit tougher for some of these guys. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, next year's class, especially some of the guys that didn't make it this year. Your Torrey Holtz, you probably think should have been on there. But, what do you think?
Yeah, he should be in now.
Among the group that I mentioned, the first timers, who do you think will have? Among the first timers that I mentioned.
Among the first timers, I think Drew Brees is a lock, and of course Larry Fitzgerald is a lock. I think those 2. I would say Phillip Rivers number 3, but he may have to wait a year or 2 because You mentioned some of the other players that haven't been inducted yet, like Torrey Holt and some of the others. I think that's going to push Phillip Rivers back a year or two. So for the first timers, I think that Larry Fitzgerald and Drew Brees are locks. Is Frank Gore you mentioned? Did you mention Frank Gore on that list?
Yes.
I think he may have to wait a year too. He's right behind Phillip Rivers, in my opinion. Yeah, he's going to go in because he has the numbers, but I think he's going to have to wait a year or two.
What do you think about Julian Edelman, though? Some people say that he might get in first ballot next year.
He was suspended for PEDs from the league. I know he won the Super Bowl MVP in 2018, where there was no offense. He
would be the first guy from those Patriots teams on the offensive side. We know a lot of the guys on defense are on there. Let's say Teddy Bruschi, Richard Seymour. So.
Like I said, he did put up good numbers, but being the first ballot Hall of Famer, no, not in my opinion.
All right. Well, like I said, we'll find out as it gets going here. Of course, they're gonna get it going, next year.
Here's the thing. I'll put this to bed for now. Who deserves to go in first? Torrey Holt or Julian Edelman? Torrey Holt. No debate here.
But you probably say he should have been in like the last 3-4 years. But I know.
But don't tell me Julian Edelman deserves to get in the Hall of Fame first over Torrey Holt. That's BS.
Oh yeah, that's
all I'm saying.
Kurt Warner will let him have it if that's the case. So, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gonna be very interesting to see what happens. Like I said, we'll get as the ballots get going, of course, later this year, before the year is out. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, next year's Hall of Fame clash just got more and more interesting. Now, we'll take a really quick break. Of course, we'll do a sports potpourri segment with sports media news as NBC Sports announced their sideline reporters for their NBA coverage. A veteran golf announcer announces his retirement. Some other sports media news and so much more. Of course, we will dedicate some part of Old School Team Monday to a former 80s icon. And, of course, a top show from the early aughts. And so much more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago Sports Potpourri segment coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this Monday extravaganza edition, the first one for the month of August. You're locked and loaded right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter X in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter X, and here's again on IG.
This is our last break of the show for today in our sports potpourri segment. If you have any questions or comments of any of the subjects that we discussed thus far on today's program, you definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
We'll start with sports media news as NBC early this morning announced those new courtside reporters. That's what they're called, and not sideline. They're courtside reporters for their NBA coverage coming up. I got Zora Stevenson, who's been doing it for years. Jordan Cornette, who's the husband of one of our girls from the show, Miss Shea Pepler Cornette. She's actually a maid right now. We'll explain why in a second. Also, Ashley Shahabadi and Grant Liffman, who will be an NBA insider on Peacock. So this will be your team for the courtside reporting for their NBA coverage coming up this season. So, Sid, what do you think?
All of them great hires. You mentioned Ashley Shahabadi. She did the courtside reporting for NBA TV the last few years, and she did the Charlotte Hornets as well, along with the Atlanta Braves. So she's going to do a great job. I think she has a newborn on the way, if I'm not mistaken. So congratulations to her and her family on that. Jordan Cornette, of course, he did great work with the Campus Insiders when it was here in Chicago. That's how him and Shay met here in Chicago, of course. And, of course, he was a co-host of the old Cap and Company show on ESPN 1000 here in Chicago. And, of course, he's gone on to do great things for FS1, and, of course, with NBC and Peacock with their college basketball coverage this year. So he's still getting to do college basketball, but he's going to do a whole lot of NBA as well. So Jordan Cornette, congratulations to him. And, of course, Miss Zora Stevenson, I know she's been doing college football the last couple of years, but she did a great job with the Milwaukee Bucks up through the COVID season, and she's back. And she did the Olympics last year with the men's and women's basketball team. So she's going to do an outstanding job. So great hires by NBC.
Definitely pulling out all the stops here now. Ian Baker-Finch, for those of you who's been doing golf for both CBS and, of course, he first started doing it, but he was over when ABC and ESPN were doing it. He signed off after 30 years. I can't believe he's been doing it 30 years. That's okay. That does make sense. Of course, he won the Open Championship back in '91 in Royal Birkdale. He wants to focus. He signed off after the Women's Championship. Also, congrats to our girl Chrissy Mack's guy Cam Young. He finally gets his first PGA title to hold pretty much lap in the field, if you will, winning by 6 strokes over Max Miesner. But yeah, Ian Beerfish, like I said, I remember I saw him back in the late 80s, and just a great golfer, an even better guy. And of course, he wants to start designing golf down in his native Australia. That's why he wants to retire and focus on that. So good for him, and definitely end of an era over there at CBS.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know much of the broadcasters for golf. You know, I'm a casual golf watcher outside. I know Jim Nance has been doing it for you since the 90s, but yeah, it's going to be a different new era as some of our legends are passing away or just retiring. Yeah, this is how it happens. I know some people say a little bit longer than it should, but you know, this is the way that things end up at times. So, but I said for the little golf that I remember watching as a child, remember the great Vern Lundquist did some golf tournaments. Of course, the late great Pat Summerall, who was Mr. Everything at CBS during the 70s and 80s and early 90s. He did everything. So when you have veteran broadcasters like that do a sport at such a high level for a long time, people are going to associate you with that sport.
Yeah, so wishing Mr. Finchy all the best there. Of course, he gets his second chapter of doing golf design now. Zach Herbstreit has been hired by 0-3, which is a podcast company. Of course, as a national college football analyst. Of course, yes, he is the son of longtime College Game Day and of course ESPN ABC college football analyst Kurt Herbstreit. Of course, he had to retire from football because he had, was diagnosed with a heart condition. But he remained with the game. I've actually heard him on various podcasts. He actually is a really smart, really engaging guy. He definitely has the passion for it. And of course, he's going to be hosting various, pre and post shows on their network. And this is actually a nice move by an up and coming podcast company, having a name guy to kind of be your face. I think this is a smart move by them.
Yeah, you need credible people to carry the message out and deliver their expertise on whatever sport they played in or they participate in or know heavy knowledge about. And this is what it's all about. And so with a name like Herbstreit, you think, oh, Kurt Herbstreit, obviously, like you said, this is his son, but the name Herbstreit carries a big weight. And so we'll see what happens as this new adventure comes along with his son.
Yeah, the first episode of Off Script with Zach Herbstreit has already been released. I think it was released earlier this morning, so you guys can check it out on 0-3. I know it's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. So after you watch us, you can check him out on there. And there was something else I wanted to talk to you about, Sid, real quick. Well, speaking of, I guess, keeping up with the theme of, I guess, getting younger folks to kind of, bring in ESPN that's hired TikTok star Katie Feeney to lead the next gen sports content. I guess she's going to be posting content. She's going to be doing also some other content as well. I know she's been doing a lot of social media stuff for the Commanders the last couple of years. So I guess some of the networks are kind of embracing the TikTok generation. So by hiring young people, this is another way, I guess, to do it.
Yeah, and excuse me, ESPN has been criticized of not doing that or lack thereof over the last several years. And I think this is all in perfect timing with the NFL, excuse me, with the NFL and college football seasons coming up. And of course, with them being a merger with the NFL Network, now owning majority of that channel, and of course, with the direct-to-consumer service will debut, I believe, next month in time for the NFL season. This all coincides with the hire of Miss Katie Feeney. I've heard of her a little bit. Of course, I'm not on TikTok. That's for the young kids, as I would say. But she's been doing great work. All the teams throughout all the four major sports have social media correspondents and creators are doing this type of work, and you have to know your fan base and know your audience. So as we said before, LaKeena, digging deeper into how we consume sports, how we consume television, and most importantly, how we consume highlights. You're not waiting for Sports Center anymore like we did back in the day. We had limited options. You're not waiting for your local late night news to get that highlight. If you want it now, you go into YouTube, House of Highlights, or the four major sports, their official YouTube channels, or whether it's you watching it on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. Excuse me, you want to catch the highlights as soon as possible. You're not waiting for the news like we had to back in the day. So things are changing. And so ESPN hopefully is trying to change with the times. Hopefully it's not too late for them.
Yeah, I know that does been kind of like the one criticism. They don't do well among, I guess, like 18 to 29-year-olds. So Katie's only 24, so 25, I should say. She always has a great resume. She has a great following on TikTok. So this is kind of like, I guess, their way to kind of capitalizing on that. So we'll see if they can. They'll see if they can kind of lead the way and get the younger folks to watch ESPN's content.
Yeah, and also too, ESPN has been criticized of not capitalizing on the social media market as far as YouTube content and what have you. Of course, they bought the time to broadcast the first 2 hours of Pat McAfee's show. Rich Eisen's show will be debuting on ESPN Radio and on ESPN Plus in the fall. And of course, they're getting competition from Barstool. So ESPN is trying to catch up with the times. We'll see if it works out for them or not.
Any other sports media news before we move on?
Let's move on, please.
All right. Well, speaking of college football, The first, look, just want to say, just for the record, I don't like preseason polls. I always feel it. You know how this, how I feel about preseason polls,
Yeah.
Sid, and
It's trash.
Yeah, the first poll should not come out till October, but again, I digress. But nonetheless, so USA Today, a coaches poll, they posted their first poll for this season coming up. So Sid, who do you think is leading the poll here on the coach's side?
Ooh, I'm not on Google, so I'm gonna take a shot. Notre Dame.
No, but they are in the top 10. They're they're at number 5.
Okay, can I get one more guess?
Yes.
Like I said, I'm not on Google, so I'm just throwing guess out blindside. Penn State.
No, they're at number 3. Your number one team your number one team in the coaches poll is Texas. Of course, Arch Manning is back for a full season.
Makes sense.
And I think, so they got a lot of their guys back. So I guess that makes sense that they would be leading. They got one more first place, both in the reigning champion Ohio State. They're at number 2. Then it's Penn State. Then it's Georgia, Notre Dame, Clemson, Oregon, Alabama, LSU, Miami. That's your top 10. Then you've got Arizona State, Illinois. That'll make our buddy Herb Lawrence happy. South Carolina, Michigan, Ole Miss, SMU, Florida, Tennessee, Indiana. Interesting. K-State, Texas A&M, Iowa State, BYU, Texas Tech, and Boise State. Those are your top 25.
Hopefully, we can get our buddy Dave Revson on from the Big Ten Network later on before the college football season starts, before his annual visit to our program. I want to ask you just a couple of quick questions. We wanted to get deep into it today, but I know it's a lot of pressure, not so much pressure on Ohio State, but a whole lot of pressure on James Franklin's Penn State Nittany Lions. I know they lost Ty Warren to the NFL. Drew Aller is back for another year. I know the defense looks strong, but do you really think that's a championship roster? I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I know the schedule is very favorable, but
I think that's why. I think that's why you're getting a lot of people that think that Penn State could probably have to get to the playoff, perhaps be one of the final teams standing, is because they got that favorable schedule. They get Ohio State at home at Happy Valley. They get, I should say Oregon, and they got to go at Ohio State. They don't have to face Michigan this time, nor do they have to face Illinois. So some people are saying, other than those 2 games I mentioned, the Oregon and the Ohio State, that's why some people are saying that's why they think that's where that's why they think Penn State could have a chance against the playoff. I mean, I think Nebraska might be better this year. I think Indiana, we'll see where Indiana is by then. They got a pretty favorable schedule again this year. So,
you're going to be on the Hoosiers, because can they duplicate what they did last year when no one was paying attention to them? Now all the eyes are going to be on you. Can you raise your game up to another level?
Well, Kirsten Giddy, to his credit, I think he wants to show folks that they were just a fluke. So I think that's going to be a thing here. And also, I would say, look, Bill Belichick, I guess we'll see how he does over there in North Carolina. You still got to contend with Clemson. Florida State could be better this year. We'll see where Miami is. Of course, Cam Ward in the NFL now. Let's see some of the other. We'll say that the Big 12. I know Arizona State's the highest team. They're in the top 10. BYU could probably have some say about it as well. Maybe Texas Tech. I mean, again, we'll see. I think. Let's see here. I think if you go outside, I guess Boise State, but you gotta think that there's some buzz about some other teams that might be there too. The SEC's could be a gauntlet. Of course, you got your Alabamas, your Floridas, your Georgias. Oklahoma will probably be better this year. Tennessee, we'll see how they look this year. Texas. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions that are going to need to be answered here. And like I said, this is why I don't like preseason polls. I hate them. I hate them. So this is why I don't like them. So the AP poll should come out probably like around this time next week. So we'll talk about that too. But yeah, hopefully, I know Dave Repson and his guys are on the road right now. So hopefully we can get him by the end of the month. But definitely love to hear his thoughts on his thoughts on the college football season.
Even though you hate the LaKeena, we're talking about it for the next 5 minutes on the show. But I do want to ask you one question about Nebraska. I believe this will be year number 3 under Matt Rule, correct?
Yes.
And Dylan Raiola, Patrick Mahomes reincarnated, quote unquote. He had a nice year last year, at least in the first half, as a team But the second half of the schedule, they only won 2 games, and they barely averaged over, I believe it was 12 or 13 points per game. I know they had a tough loss to Illinois last year at home, in which springboarded Illinois into another successful year, and Nebraska ended up going down afterwards. But I think they may be a team to watch. I'm talking about Nebraska, but I think Rayola has to put a consistent year together. We kind of talked about it with Drew Alla last year. When we had Dave Vaughn from the Big Ten Network, but I got to put that pressure on Dylan Rayola this year. I know he was an sort of unknown boy wonder last year, no pun intended, but I think a whole lot more pressure needs to be put on him this year.
They got such a young squad too, but a talented squad nonetheless. So you gotta think that they might sneak up on people. Talking about Nebraska, and I know, like I said, I'm sure Matt Rule. There's gonna be a lot of people that think that Matt, they had a nice bowl win last year as well. So you gotta think people were hoping that Cornhusker country. They're gonna build on that. They do face Michigan in the 20th. I really don't see. I mean, USC, they might give them some fits.
September.
Yeah. And of course, USC later this year as well. We'll see where they are by then. I'm talking about SC, Iowa. We'll see where Iowa is by at that point too. So they could perhaps maybe get 8 or 9 wins, maybe. But yeah, I think that as Riola goes, so does Nebraska. I think that's really going to be the key this year. I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now a couple more notes on college football before we move on. Alabama, how do you think they're going to look with their new head coach entering year number 2? I know Jalen Moreau's not there anymore. He's in the NFL. They always have great talent there. I know Nick Saban is being comfortable.
You tell me.
ESPN now, probably to be replaced. So.
Well, yeah. Look, I think that's going to be the really interesting part for me here. I think, how will Alabama? I don't think people are talking about Alabama too much, and I think, look, I think he's probably. I think, Coach DeBoer is probably okay with that. That they're not really talking about Alabama too much this year, which I'm sure he's fine with. So I'll be interested to see who's going to be their starter down there. Of course, now that Moreau isn't there anymore. So, like I said, I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens with that one. Now, like I said, Texas, we talked about them. Of course, not only do they got, of course, Arch Manning back. Of course, on the defense side, they got Anthony Hill, one of the top linebackers in the country. He might be that defense might be the reason why if they go far, he's probably going to be the reason why there as well. So I'm a little. So it's I think that's going to be Texas is going to be a very interesting team to watch in that conference. Georgia too. I mean, I know they got a pretty young squad as well. So that's going to be another one here. Now again, going back to Alabama, of course you got Ryan Wells. He's only 18 years old. We saw what a big splash he made last year. You think he's only going to get better? So I think he's bulked up a little bit this year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there now. This whole thing is going to be kind of like interesting how all this sort of like plays out, because there's going to be a lot of questions. Like I said, we'll talk more about it as we get closer and closer to the season. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see like who's going to be that team. I know Boise State, of course, we'll see how they look that offense look down without Ashton Genty. He was kind of like that. I know they made a couple. They had a couple of but of course that unfortunately came out to bite them in the butt. I'm talking about Genty, the way they used him a lot last season. So now they're going to have to. Get that going there. But yeah, I think it's going to be, like I said, this is going to be very interesting, I think.
Yeah, like I said, a lot. You want a parity in college football, especially now with the NIL and the transfer portal. This is it. As you mentioned, welcome to the new ways of college sports in 2025. Just before we move on, just quickly looking at my monitor at CBS Sports HQ. Miami plays the University of Miami. They host Notre Dame on August 31st on prime time. And guess who's the favorite in that game?
Well, I'm going to go on a limb and say probably Notre Dame, I guess.
Yep, 2.5-point favorite as of right now.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, it's going to be at a pick'em. So, we'll see how. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Notre Dame is going to be another team that's going to be interesting. I know people say like Marcus Freeman. I know they had a lot of their guys leave last year. I know you reloaded on some other guys. So, we'll get the first limit test of that as they go against Miami.
Yeah, I know him and his players were interviewed by the Chicago media last week, and so we'll see what happens. As Notre Dame, well, we'll have another challenge this year to try to get back to the college football playoff appearance, bring home another national championship. Hello, Brandon Schutz. He's finally checking in again in the chat. We talked about your Houston Astros earlier, so if you want to listen to that or rewind this on, or if you're watching this on YouTube, and go back and listen to that segment. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LaKeena here with you, wrapping up the show. LaKeena, any thoughts on your mind before we close it out with Old School TV Monday?
Now let's get to Old School TV Monday.
All right, I was on social media late last night, LaKeena. I thought it was fake, but unfortunately it was not. The news is real. Lonnie Anderson passed away at the age of 79. Of course, we did Old School TV Monday last year for WKRP in Cincinnati. Of course, she had a big role on that show. She played one of the iconic characters in television sitcom history at that time. Of course, that show didn't really gain any bigger popularity once it went into syndication for years. And of course, she starred in numerous television specials and movies. She's being remembered as having great class and carrying herself with dignity. And of course, what she did with the WKRP in Cincinnati. And I was shocked when I saw the news last night.
Yeah, she died just 2 days short of her 80th birthday. She would turn 80, I believe, tomorrow. So the tough, very tough news there after a brief illness. Of course, look, you gotta you give her credit. I know she embraced the sex symbol status. I know some women will probably cringe at it, but she embraced it. I mean, I think she understood that. Look, that was why she became a star. Now, to her credit, though, she did say she didn't want Jennifer to be some dumb, stereotypical. Because at the time, the secretaries were supposed to have been made to be seen and not heard. If you guys know what I mean. She wanted more class, and she brought charisma to it. That kind of helped as well. So good for her for doing that. And of course, she started also some TV movies. I remember her in Deadly Secrets. I know that was one of my favorite TV movies, and she did a great job doing that. She made other TV appearances, like another show that we did for Old School TV Monday, it's Reading Teenage Witch. I know Melissa Joan Hart posted where she did a guest spot there, among other shows. She was also on Nurses too. I think she was on the last season of Nurses. She was supposed to be like that big star that kind of helped. Unfortunately, it didn't. That'd be the last season that she didn't boost the ratings like that. ABC thought that she would. But yeah, she definitely embraced the sex symbol status. Of course, she became much more than that, and a great actress, and an even better human being too. If you go to Tim Reed's social media, his Instagram, he actually posted one of his favorite scenes that he did with her. I know they've been friends a long time. Of course, they co-starred on WKRP, and I think him, and I think Gary Stanley, I know Jan Smith. I forgot the guy that played her, but no, those are the only four that are left among the original cast. So that's tough to hear.
Yeah, so we'd like to send our condolences to Lonnie Anderson's family from all of us here at Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago for the passing of Miss Lonnie Anderson. Now we get to Old School TV Monday, LaKeena. It's the early 2000s, so Sunday nights you're settling in, getting ready for work or school, and the next day to start off Mondays. If it's during the fall and winter months, you're wrapping up watching the NFL on Fox around after The Simpsons. There was a program that shaped TV comedy for the early 2000s. I am talking about Malcolm in the Middle. It was an American television sitcom created by Linwood Boomer for the Fox Broadcasting Company. It premiered in January of 2000, and it ended on May 14, 2006, after 7 seasons consisting of 151 episodes. The single-camera series was a comedy that followed the dysfunctional middle-class family, and it starred Frankie Muniz as the lead role as Malcolm, a child prodigy. The ensemble cast included Jan Karsmack, Bryan Cranston as Malcolm's parents, Lois and Hal, Christopher Kennedy Masterson, Justin Birdfield, and Eric Purcell appeared as Malcolm's brothers, Francis, Reese, and Dewey, respectively. Typical plots revolved around the family's dysfunctional relationships and inability to fit into society, with Malcolm regularly making asides to the camera to comment on their failures. Another brother, James and Lucas Rodriguez, was introduced as the fifth son of Hal and Lois at the end of season 4, with further pregnancy in the series finale alluding to a sixth child.
That kind of, you kind of put it wrong with Malcolm in the Middle not being in the middle anymore. But yeah, Yeah, they broke the fourth wall. You had Malcolm kind of like talking to the camera at times, so I think that's kind of made you feel like you were invited you in. So it was actually you saw some like the misadventures of that family and a lot of the dysfunction, but also it was very relatable as well. So I think that's probably why the show did so well at that time, because of course there really wasn't a lot like the cute family sitcoms. Of course, you went to do stages. This is the kind of thing that kind of took it to a whole nother level. So I think that's really what made Malcolm in the Middle such a big cult hit. It's still very popular too. It's on Fuse TV. If you have Hulu, it's on all 7 seasons are on Hulu as well. So it's definitely one of those shows that definitely kind of stood. And it ages well too. So I think that makes it even better.
Yeah, and let's not forget bringing it back to the sports element. Frankie Munoz, I still believe is still a big LA Clippers fan to this day. During that time for the NBA, he's a big Clippers fan. Of course, that show was filmed in Los Angeles with no laugh track and no studio audience, so that was revolutionary at that time. And the show was not supposed to debut on Fox. It was supposed to debut on UPN during the 98-99 television season, but because of some stuff going on behind the scenes, it premiered on Fox the next cycle television season a year later.
And it probably to the better part for them. I don't think it probably will last maybe like 5 seasons on UPN, but I think maybe it's a good thing that it lasted because it lasted longer on Fox. Now, of course, Bryan Cranston, of course, he has like 3 or 4 Emmys. Of course, he was going on to do Breaking Bad. Of course, he's got 3 Emmys, and actually 4 Emmys because I think he was a producer in their last season, which they won the Emmy for Best Drama. He also has an Oscar nod to his credit as well. Jane Kaczmarek, I think, was nominated like 3 or 4 times for an Emmy during that series. So yeah, I think it was definitely one of those shows. Like I said, it's kind of it ages well, and I think it's sort of. It had like a nice little ensemble cast as well. They were all recurring, so that makes it even better. Jay's husband at the time, Bradley Whitford, made a cameo on the show as well. Susan Sarandon also appeared on the show. B. Arthur, one of her last TV appearances, was also made a guest appearance on that show. So it's definitely kind of a who's who at the time, that appeared on that series. So, like I said, it's on Hulu. It comes on Fuse TV. So if you got Fuse TV, you can watch that too for free. But you watch it on Hulu and Amazon Prime if you want to watch the series there.
And they talked about bringing them back for a reunion. They filmed some stuff and they wrapped up about 3 months ago, back in May of 2025, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So I think they tried to do like another kind of like I think they tried to do kind of like a reboot, but unfortunately it didn't work. So yeah, I think that's probably why it didn't take off. But like I said, it's on Hulu, it's on Disney Plus. So if you guys want to watch, like I said, it's on Fuse TV. If you got that on your cable or satellite system, it comes on every I think every week, so you can watch it there as well. So Malcolm in the Middle, another great series that probably doesn't get its due, but we're gonna give it its due here on Second City Sports.
Yes, and so for Old School TV Monday for this week, kicking off the month of August, we salute the Fox TV sitcom Malcolm in the Middle. All right, LaKeena, take us home.
You can follow McGee on the Twitter, execute on the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We're located at Ward Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're ready, please give Ward Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Of course, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on the Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. One more time, you get Sports Zone Chicago. If you missed any of our segments, you can catch replays anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels, as well as Sean Sierra Sports, What's Up Cuz, and so much more. You can catch it all right here on the Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
All right. Of course, we want to thank Evan Altman. We didn't get a chance to do it on Friday. We want to thank Evan Altman for Real Cubs Insider for joining us on Friday. We didn't get a chance to do that. So yeah, we're gonna thank him for coming on. Definitely gonna bring him back on, especially if the Cubs go into a nice deep playoff run. Of course, we'll try to get somebody on to preview some of the divisional previews we got coming up as well. Also, all the great guests. Hopefully, we got coming up down the pipe within the next few weeks or so. So you can catch it all right here. Forrest and LaKeena. Be safe out there. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. We'll see you guys on Friday.
Go Sox and bear down. Holla!